is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Good evening, Philippines, and good day, world. I'm Troy Gomez. It's Friday, the 28th of July, 2023, and you're watching Newsline World. We're here to bring you the top stories we've gathered from all over the globe. In the headlines, possible repatriation of Filipinos on death row will be discussed in the upcoming Philippine-Malaysia Joint Commission meeting in October. The era of global boiling has arrived, as said by Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as the United Nations marks July as the hottest month in record history. The second day of Russia-Africa summit kicked off, wherein President Putin declared that Africa is becoming a new center of power. Two Koreas mark the 70th Armistice Anniversary in strikingly different ways. And China hosts the 31st FISU World University Games in Chengdu. These and more for tonight's edition of Newsline World. In the news, the 31st FISU World University Games has kicked off in style, igniting excitement and enthusiasm in Chengdu, the bustling capital of southwest China's Sichuan province. This highly anticipated multi-sport event has attracted thousands of talented students, athletes from around the world, ready to showcase their skills and sportsmanship. With so much action and talent on display, we are thrilled to have Zheng Songwu from CGTN here with us to keep you updated on all the latest happenings and highlights. But before we dive into the thrilling details, let's get a clear picture of the magnitude of this event. Songwu, could you please share with our viewers the number of events and sports featured in the 31st FISU World University Games?
Yeah, thank you, Troy, for having me here. And the games are held in Chengdu, the capital city of southwest China's Sichuan province. And 6,500 athletes from 113 countries and regions are participating in the 31st Chengdu FISU World University Games, with 36 countries and regions from Europe, 35 from Asia, and 24 from Africa, etc. And there are 18 sports, including athletics, swimming, basketball, judo, diving, water polo in this FISU Games. And athletics, swimming, taekwondo, fencing are the popular sports. And the first gold medal will be awarded to Wushu athletes on Saturday morning. Troy?
So, aside from that, could you share any details about the Chinese president or Xi Jinping's bilateral talks with at least 6 world leaders, including his Indonesian counterpart, Joko Widodo, ahead of the World University Games in Chengdu?
Yeah, actually, President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan held a banquet on Friday at the Jinyu Hotel in Chengdu to welcome international dignitaries attending the opening ceremony of the FISU Games this year. And on Friday, before the banquet, President Xi Jinping met with the President of the Islamic Republic of Mauritania. And he said over the past 31 years since the establishment of diplomatic relations, China and Mauritania have been sincere to each other and have built a strong relationship. And the two countries should continue to be good friends who support each other and good partners for a common development. And also in a meeting with Burundi President Xi Jinping also expressed his warm welcome to the president's attendance at the opening ceremony. And also in the meeting with the Guyanese President Irfan Ali, President Xi Jinping also said that the two countries should be good friends who trust and count on each other, and both countries should share opportunities, meet challenges, seek cooperation, and also promote development together. And President Xi Jinping, of course, also met with the Georgian Prime Minister in Chengdu, and he also said over the past 31 years, China and Georgia have scored a remarkable achievement in cooperation in various fields. And President Xi Jinping also expressed his warm welcome to President Joko Widodo, his attendance at the opening ceremony. And he also said, on the way of national modernization and rejuvenate nation, the two countries, China and Indonesia are good friends and partners. And China is also willing to take the opportunity, President Xi Jinping said, of the 10th anniversary of the establishment of a comprehensive strategic partnership between the two countries to deepen cooperation with Indonesia at a higher level. Sorry.
So before we let you go, could you let our viewers know where they can catch the broadcast of the events you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, there are several ways to find the broadcast. First of all, if the audience is available, if CGTN are available in Philippines, and the audiences or spectators in Philippines can download the CGTN application, because we have a sports scene every day in the afternoon. So the people in Philippines can catch that in that way. And also, there's another way that people in Philippines can check the official website of the Chengdu FISU World University Games. They can watch live games every day there. Troy, I hope you can enjoy the games.
Thank you, Songwoo, for your report from China. Meanwhile, tourists flock to a famous fishing village in Chengdu in Fujian, China, for its houses made of oyster shells and women wearing traditional flowery headdresses. Let's hear this story from Jason Rubrico.
A famous fishing village in Chengdu in Fujian, China, receives a lot of tourists every day. Xinpu Village is popular for its unique practices and architecture. First, the village is known for its colorfully dressed women with flowery headwear, traditional Chinese garments, and wooden sabots.
Chinese girls is chasing for beauty, and this garden in her hair is a symbol of beauty. So they like the lifestyle, or they like the garden in the hair.
Since Chengdu is one of the important port cities on the maritime Silk Road, the flowers worn by Xinpu women originally came from Arabic countries. In 2008, the said practice of women was recognized as a national intangible cultural heritage in China.
Bukod sa mga nagagandahang headdress na sinusuot ng mga kababaihan dito sa Xinpu Village, kilala rin ang lugar sa mga bahay na gawa sa oyster shells. Ayon sa taga Xinpu, nagsimula ang pagtatayo ng mga oyster houses noong Song at Yuan Dynasty.
It's very rare from the whole country. They are made of the oyster shell, and it's kept warm in the winter and it's kept cold in the summer. So it's very amazing and impressive.
But the oyster shells used to build the houses did not come from Chengdu but from Africa. In ancient times, the Xinpu people traded goods with African countries. They went there with silk and tea and returned with oyster shells to increase the weight of their ship and prevent capsizing. Besides China, most of the tourists here come from Japan, South Korea, and other countries in Southeast Asia. For God and my beloved Philippines, I am Jason Rubrico, SMN News.
The era of global boiling has arrived, as said by the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. He also called upon world leaders after announcing this month will be the hottest month in record history. Justin Nazario reports.
Climate change has reached a terrifying point. This is what the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres announced on Thursday, July 27, 2023. He revealed that July 2023 might become the hottest month ever recorded on Earth, according to data from the World Meteorological Organization, or WMO, and the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service.
Humanity is in the hot seat. July has already seen the hottest 3-week period ever recorded, the 3 hottest days on record, and the highest ever ocean temperatures for this time of year. The consequences are clear and they are tragic. children swept away by monsoon rains, families running from the flames, workers collapsing in scorching heat. For vast parts of North America, Asia, Africa, and Europe, it's a cruel summer. For the entire planet, it is a disaster. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived.
Meanwhile, Carlo Bontempo, the head of Copernicus, shared that the extreme weather experienced in July is a harsh reality of climate change, and it's a glimpse of what to expect in the future, as forecasts suggest that temperatures will continue to be much higher than usual. Meanwhile, WMO Director of Climate Services Chris Hewitt gave a worrying prediction. He said there's a 98% chance that one of the next 5 years will break the record for the hottest year ever recorded. Hewitt also described conditions this July as remarkable and unprecedented and urged action on climate shock adaptation.
We would need to adapt to those heat waves to take care of vulnerable societies or whatever it might be, the environment. So yes, there's a need to adapt to increases in temperature. And then, as you asked in the question, there are other extremes as well. So extremes, flooding, droughts, windstorms.
Meanwhile, Carlo Bontempo, director of the Copernicus Climate Change Service at the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecast, or CEMWF, said that such measures are necessary and feasible.
Typically, there are actions, even inexpensive action, that individual and local administration can take to limit the exposure, to limit the vulnerability of each one of us to this temperature.
Both scientists have also urged governments and individuals to take action to protect vulnerable populations from heat waves. Meanwhile, the UN Secretary General made it clear in his statement that humans are to blame for the arrival of the global boiling.
And for scientists, it is unequivocal. Humans are to blame. All this is entirely consistent with predictions and repeated warnings. The only surprise is the speed of the change.
With this, Guterres called upon world leaders to act swiftly and decisively.
Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy. No more excuses. No more waiting for the others to move first. There is simply no more time for that. And all actors must come together to accelerate a just and equitable transition from fossil fuels to renewables, as we stop oil and gas expansion and funding and licensing for new coal, oil and gas. Credible plans must also be presented to exit coal by 2030 for OECD countries and 2040 for the rest of the world.
One of the main actions the UN chief called for was to stop using coal in developed countries by 2030 and in the rest of the world by 2040. This step is considered crucial to combat the worsening climate crisis. Reporting, this has been Justin Azario, SMNI News.
Several experts are expressing concern over the increasing number of obese and diabetic individuals in the Philippines. Here's a report by MJ Mondejar.
According to the Food and Nutrition Research Institute study in 2018, the number of obese individuals in the Philippines stands at 5.6 million. FNRI specialist Chona Patalan attributes obesity to an imbalanced diet, excessive eating, and lack of exercise. The data mentioned was collected before the COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns, which limited people's mobility. Given the high number of those individuals before the pandemic, experts are worried about the potential increase of obesity cases now.
So kung ganito na po kalaki yung ating pre-diabetes in the Philippines noong pa man before the pandemic, tapos nakita po natin na tumaas yung ating overweight and obesity in 2021, malamang po ay tumaas po ito this time.
Diabetes is closely associated with obesity, as reported by the Philippine Statistics Authority in 2020. Diabetes ranks among the top killer diseases in the Philippines, along with heart diseases, cancer, and cerebrovascular diseases. Professor Hercules Calianta from UP Diliman College of Human Kinetics suggests using a person's waistline measurement to determine obesity, in addition to BMI.
The waist circumference that is tolerable with respect to overweightness, well, normal weight is 35.25. So beginning 36 upward you are already overweight.
The rising rates of obesity and diabetes call for prompt government intervention, according to experts.
Kasi hindi po nagagamot ang diabetes, pero bumababa po ang symptoms at dahil po sa exercise, nabubuhay muli yung kanilang mga receptors ng insulin.
To maintain good health, experts recommend engaging in 150 to 300 minutes of physical activity per week. With the recent lifting of the state of public health emergency due to COVID-19 by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., more Filipinos can now move freely. Experts hope for the creation of more walkable lanes, especially here in Metro Manila, to promote physical activity and discourage sedentary behavior. They advise the government to focus on promoting healthy lifestyles and providing nutrition education to gradually address the growing problem of obesity and diabetes. For Government of Philippines, MJ Mondihar, SMNI News.
The second day of the Russia-Africa Summit kicked off on Friday, wherein Russian President Vladimir Putin lauded the growing political and economic power of Africa. Let's find out what else happened during the summit with Carlo De La Peña's report.
The era of hegemony of one or several states is fading into the past. This is what Russian President Vladimir Putin told African leaders who attended the second day of the Russian-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg on Friday. Putin believes that Africa's political and economic power is growing, and at the same time, the ex-dominant world powers are losing their influence. The Russian president said, and quote, "Before our eyes, the African continent is becoming a new center of power. Its political and economic role is growing exponentially, and everyone will have to reckon with this objective reality." End of quote. He stressed that while the era of hegemony of one or several states is fading despite resistance from those seeking to maintain a monopoly on world affairs, Putin also promised that Russia will continue to expand its interaction with African countries, saying that it is a natural process. During the event, the Russian president also mentioned that his country boosted food supplies to African countries despite sanctions and promised Moscow will be a responsible supplier of agricultural produces, including free of charge to countries in need.
We expand and extend the shipments of agricultural products to Africa. In the year 2022, we have sent 11.5 million tons of grains to African countries, and in the first 6 months of this year, we have sent another almost 10 million tons. Despite the illegal sanctions against our exports, which seriously hinder the shipments of Russian food products and complicate the transportation, logistics, insurance and bank transactions. Let me underline that you, my dear friends, can rest assured that Russia shall always remain a responsible international supplier of agricultural products. We shall continue supporting the countries and regions in need. We will provide our grains and other food products, including shipments free of charge, and shipments within the United Nations World Food Programme.
Many African countries rely heavily on Russia and Ukraine for their grain imports. In fact, UN data shows that between 90 to 100% of the wheat Somalia and Eritrea needs comes from the two countries, while 15 other African countries imported over 50% of their wheat products from Russia or Ukraine. Thus, the termination of the Black Sea grain deal sent shockwaves to the world, with many African countries reeling from the impact. But according to Putin, Russia has repeatedly extended the deal in good faith, despite the other parties failing to fulfill the full agreement, and that tons of fertilizer exports failed to fully reach African nations, as majority remains in Europe. To recall, Putin offered to provide free grain to 6 African countries, and that the shipments will be ready within months. Each will receive 25,000 to 50,000 tons of grain, and Russia will cover all delivery costs of its shipments.
In the near months, 3-4 months, we would be ready to provide to Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, Mali, Somalia, the Central African Republic, and Eritrea. We would be ready to supply 25,000-50,000 tons of grain to each. Will ensure free shipping of this cargo.
And on Friday, he announced that Russia will allocate an additional $90 million to African countries for development and promised trade preferences. He also revealed Russia has written off debt amounting to $23 billion. The Russia-Africa Summit and Forum was first held in Russia's Sochi in 2019, with representatives of all 54 countries of the continent, including 43 African heads of state, as well as 8 major African integrations and organizations. But this year, only 40 African countries attended, 17 of which were represented by their heads of state. The Kremlin said the low turnout of African heads of state was due to Western pressure. Reporting, this has been Carlo de la Peña, SMNI News.
Meanwhile, the chief of the Wagner paramilitary group was spotted on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit on Thursday and was photographed with an African dignitary. Jane Kudnita has the details.
Yevgeny Prigozhin, the founder and chief of Wagner, was spotted on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa Summit in St. Petersburg on Thursday, the first sighting inside the country since leading a short-lived mutiny against the Russian military in June. Prigozhin was photographed smiling, shaking hands with an African dignitary who was part of the Central African Republic delegation, as said by accounts associated with Wagner. The African dignitary was said to be a senior aide to the Central African Republic President, Faustin Archange Touadera, who is also backed by Wagner fighters. Reports say the meeting took place at Trezini Palace Hotel, which is owned by Prigozhin himself. The exact date of the images is unknown. However, it was recently posted on a Facebook account of Dmitry Siti, a senior Wagner figure in the Central African Republic, who has been sanctioned by Western countries due to his ties with Yevgeny Prigozhin. Reporting, this has been Jane Konita, SMNI News.
In the war-torn country of Ukraine, a member of the parliament is under investigation for allegedly faking sick leave to go on a luxury trip with his family. Let's hear more from Maria Yunkina.
Ukrainian authorities conducted a search at the home of Yuri Aristov, a member of the parliament, for allegedly violating wartime restrictions by going on a holiday abroad due to the personal reasons. Ukrainian investigators said they found evidence suggested that Aristov traveled to Lithuania for a work-related trip. However, Aristov allegedly faked sick leave to go on a family vacation in a luxury hotel located in Maldives. If found guilty, Aristov could be imprisoned for up to 3 years. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky condemned the issue and ordered all members of the parliament and officials to stay in Ukraine.
Ніхто не пробачить ані депутатам, ані суддям, ані воєнкомам чи будь-яким іншим посадовцям протиставлення себе державі. Комусь там острови та курорти під час війни, комусь там заробіток у воєнкоматі, комусь хабарі в судах для будь-яких державних посадовців – це зрада державних принципів, це зрада інтересів суспільства. А ті, хто думають, як би побільше часу провести за кордоном та шукають собі вигідні відрядження, щоб можна було їх поєднати з бізнесом, з друзями чи пляжами, у вас таких не буде.
З вами була Марія Юнкіна, SMNI News.
In other news, dozens were wounded and at least 6 people died following a blast in the suburbs of Damascus, as is said by Syria's Interior Ministry. Loren Santos reports.
A tragedy struck Syria following an explosion that claimed multiple lives and injured many more people in Sayed Zainab neighborhood in Damascus, an area where thousands of Shia Muslims visit each year during Ashura. According to Syrian officials, a motorbike carrying explosives detonated on a crowded street in the countryside of Damascus on Thursday evening, a tragic event that comes a day before the solemn day of Shura. Authorities had initially said that the bomb was hidden in a cab, but later said that the explosives were on a motorcycle that exploded next to the taxi. The Syrian Interior Ministry called the incident a terrorist explosion. Multiple agencies responded to the scene, including officers with Syria's Criminal Security Directorate. The attack came just days before the Islamic holiday of Ashura, and the blast was the second in the said neighborhood. To recall, on Tuesday, the Syrian state media, citing a police official, said that the 2 civilians were injured when a motorcycle laced with explosives was detonated. Meanwhile, no militant group has taken responsibility for the bombings. Reporting, this has been Loren Santos, SMNI News.
This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Armistice Agreement, which sought to end the Korean War. And 2 rival Koreas have different ways of commemorating this historic event. Let's know more about this report with Ethel Park.
The 2 rival Koreas mark the Armistice Agreement anniversary, with Pyongyang showcasing a grand military parade with top military leaders of China and Russia present. The signing of the armistice halted the 3-year Korean War and was considered as the longest negotiated armistice in history. On July 27, 1953, the military leaders of North Korea, China, and the UN, command led by the US, met at Panmunjom for a ceasefire agreement. The signing of the armistice ended hostilities. However, a peace deal has never been signed. A military armistice commission was set up to negotiate and implement the agreement. However, 70 years later, in 1994, North Korea decided to withdraw from the military armistice commission, marking the breakdown in communications. The only communication channel still open is a hotline located at Panmunjom. At present, North Korea conducted a grand military parade to showcase its newest military drones and nuclear missiles in Pyongyang. North Korea sees the armistice as a victory in what it calls the Grand Fatherland Liberation War. Korean leader Kim Jong-un shared the stage with Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu and Lee Hong-song, the vice chairman of the Standing Committee of the Chinese National People's Congress, together with their delegation. During the event, Kim Jong-un was seen shedding a tear while singing North Korea's national anthem. North Korea so far conducted 5 military parades since October 2020 parade at night. Meanwhile, South Korea marked the armistice in a more somber mood by holding a ceremony in the city of Busan led by President Yoon Suk-yeol. The event was attended by 4,000 government officials, guests in foreign and South Korean war veterans, as well as their families and descendants. The ceremony took place under the theme Freedom by Dedication, Future by Alliance. Throughout the 3-year war, about 1.95 million soldiers from 22 countries fought for South Korea under the UN flag, while North Korea was supported by China and the Soviet Union. Although it has been decades since the armistice was sealed, it's important to keep in mind that the 2 Koreas are technically still at war, as no peace deal was signed up to this day. Seoul, Isubugo, Ethel Park, SMNI News, South Korea.
A South Korean activist flew to Japan to protest against the country's plan to dump treated nuclear wastewater into the sea. Diana Flores has the details.
A delegation of 7 South Korean activists arrived here in Japan to conduct a series of protests against Japan's plan to dump wastewater coming from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The 7 activists are representatives of South Korean civic groups, and on Thursday, the activists held a press conference outside the residence of Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida in Tokyo to condemn the Japanese government and the Tokyo Electric Company, or TEPCO's, decision to release wastewater from the crippled nuclear power plant. They also submitted a protest letter with the signatures to the Nuclear Regulation Authority, administrative body of the Cabinet of Japan, established to ensure nuclear safety in the country. They also went to conduct a forum with their Japanese counterparts. According to South Korean activist Jung Eun-yong, there's no completely safe way to treat a nuclear contaminated water.
방법은 일단 명백하지가 않습니다. 그런데 그나마 현재 가장 나은 게 육지에 보관해서 시간을 보내는 것입니다. 핵물질은 반감기라는 게 있으니까요. 시간을 보내고 그 다음에 생각할 일입니다.
Lee Won-kyu, another activist, said that South Korea's Busan is among the closest port cities to Japan, and dumping nuclear water into the sea will also affect the livelihoods of their people.
부산 같은 경우는 일본하고 가장 인접해 있는 항구 도시다 보니까 해고염수가 투기되었을 때 가장 빨리 영향을 미치는 곳이라서 부산 시민들이 매우 민감해져 있는 상태고 불안감을 많이 느끼고 계시기 때문에 저희들이 그 불안한 마음들을 분노의 마음들을 같이 담아서 서명운동을 펼치게 되었습니다. 저희 세대에 끝나는 문제가 아니라 미래 세대까지 영향을 미치는 큰 문제라고 생각하기 때문에 그래서 반대하게 되었습니다.
A series of signature campaigns were held by 63 civic groups in Busan, South Korea since June 1st, and so far it has received more than 111,000 signatures from people who oppose the dumping plan. Ijo Diana Flores, Tokyo Kara Hokuko Itashimashita, SMNI News, Japan.
Earlier this week, a grain of silo exploded in the southern part of Brazil, killing at least 8 and injuring almost a dozen. Details of this report from Mike Oliveira.
In the Brazilian state of Paraná, a grain silo exploded Wednesday afternoon local time. Reports say that at least 8 people died and 11 others suffered injuries. Of all fatalities, all were men between the ages of 27 and 55, one of them a Brazilian national and the other 7 of Haitian nationality. An official statement from Civali providing a third update on the incident said a search for a missing person continues. Video footage circulating on social media shows a large column of white smoke coming from the site. The blast happened in Civali Cooperative in the small town of Palotina, where around 30,000 people live and is located 600 kilometers away from the state's capital, Curitiba. Civali is known to be a major producer of soybeans, wheat, and corn that stores grain in 125 units across 5 Brazilian states as well as in Paraguay. A silo is a structure for storing bulk materials and is used in agriculture to store fermented feed known as silage. The company said the silo, which blew up, stored about 12,000 metric tons of soybeans and 40,000 metric tons of corn. According to Civali, a similar explosion took place in the area back in 1993. The IML, which stands for Instituto Médico Legal or Institute of Forensic Medicine in English, has only released the body of Saulo da Rocha Batista, while the 7 others are yet to be released, according to Civali. Saulo's funeral takes place Friday local time at the Bom Jesus Funeral Home in Palotina. Meanwhile, as of now, the cooperative said that the cause of the explosion is yet to be determined. This is Mikey Dennis Oliveira reporting SMNI News.
Thailand's parliament will try again to choose the country's next prime minister next week, following 2 unsuccessful attempts. Anissa de Guzman has the details.
The parliament is scheduled to sit on August 4 as lawmakers launch another attempt to elect the nation's 30th prime minister. Move Forward Party leader Pita Limjaronrat's political ambition as the next Prime Minister of Thailand remains uncertain after conservative and military-nominated lawmakers block efforts to nominate him twice. The 2 houses of the parliament were due to convene on July 27 but have been postponed anew pending a constitutional court ruling on the rejected renomination of Pita Limjaronrat. A parliamentary document outlining its agenda for August 4 said the parliament would consider and endorses a suitable individual to become prime minister. House Speaker Wan Muhammad Noor Matha, however, warned the vote could be postponed again because of the pending court review of the previous decision to block Pita's renomination. If the court accepts the petition before August 4, then the House Speaker has no choice but to cancel again the parliamentary vote scheduled for next week. Di siya Anissa de Guzman, Rangan Chakuntep Mahanakon, SMNI News, Protetay, Sawadika.
More news when Newsline World returns.
Kabayan! Oo, ikaw. Alam mo ba na you can win lots of prizes when you bring home a guest in the Philippines? The Department of Tourism brings you the Visita Be My Guest program. Joining is easy. 1. Sign up as a sponsor. You can do this via the official BBMG website. All Filipinos of legal age living in the Philippines or abroad can join. 2. invite your guests. The more you invite, the more chances of winning. And 3, travel to the Philippines and upload your proof of travel to complete the registration process and earn e-raffle tickets and the BBNG travel passport and privilege card that you can use to get discounts as you travel around our award-winning destinations in the Philippines. Join now and get a chance to win in any of the 3 raffle dates in 2023. So what are you waiting for? Come home and bring your guests to the Philippines. Sign up, invite friends and family, and travel to the world's leading beach and dive destination and the world's leading country destination for tourism, the Philippines. Bisita, be my guest in the Philippines.
Para sa Diyos at sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at para sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas nating mahal.
Para sa Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas kong mahal.
Para sa Diyos at Pilipinas nating mahal.
We're back with more news. Wildlife officials had no choice but to euthanize dozens of stranded pilot whales off the coast in Western Australia as efforts to put them back in the water have failed, Shayna Selling reports.
After 48 hours of desperate attempts to save nearly 100 pilot whales stranded at Chengdu Beach, wildlife officials finally made a heartbreaking decision to help the struggling mammals. No other than to euthanize the surviving ones.
It was truly a hard and heartbreaking decision, but it's something the situation had called for.
Late on Monday, a pod of 97 pilot whales beach-masked close to the shore of Chengdu Beach, forming what seemed to be a heart-shaped formation before getting stranded on the shore. The next day, 52 of them died, urging wildlife officials to make frantic efforts to rescue the surviving ones. But despite desperate attempts by authorities and volunteers to put them back in the water, the surviving whales have only re-stranded themselves farther down the beach. This behavior urged officials to euthanize the 45 surviving whales on Wednesday to avoid prolonging their suffering. As experts try to solve the mystery behind this behavior, a research fellow from Griffith University said emotion could have played a huge role in the stranding incident, noting that pilot whales are some of the most emotional animals on the planet and are notorious for their strong social bonds. Mass stranding of whales is common in some parts of the world, and this is not the first time it happened in Australia.
Marine experts hope the latest incident of whales mass stranding could help scientists understand why the animals and whales in general beach themselves. Reporting from New South Wales, this is Shina Salim, SMNI News, Australia.
Kuwait affirmed of its commitment to pursue stronger bilateral relations with China. Melchizedek Cadiz for the details.
Kuwait's Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Defense Sheikh Ahmad Fahad Al-Hamad Al-Sabah revealed the government's eagerness to force a deep and distinguished relationship with the People's Republic of China in all fields. Sheikh Ahmad Fahad made the announcement while attending a celebration by the Chinese Embassy in Kuwait to mark the 96th anniversary of the People's Liberation Army, or PLA. He added that the friendly relations between Kuwait and China are based on cooperation and mutual respect. The defense minister also praised the technological advancement and expertise of the Chinese military and congratulated the political leadership of China as the whole nation marks the 96th anniversary of the PLA. Both countries forged diplomatic ties in 1971, with China hailed as Kuwait's largest source of imports and its biggest trading partner. Meanwhile, Kuwait has been China's seventh largest source of crude oil imports, with 30.16 million tons of export to China in 2022. Reporting this has been Melchizedek Cadiz, SMNI News, Kuwait.
The Philippine government said it will use the Joint Commission meeting to discuss the possible repatriation of overseas Filipino workers serving death sentences in Malaysia. Jean Domingo reports.
The Philippine government intends to discuss with Malaysia the issues of OFWs currently facing death sentences in the said country. This was said by President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. in a media interview on the last day of his visit to Malaysia. According to the President, the Philippines and Malaysia Joint Commission meeting will be the platform for the matter.
Well, one of the important things, the items that we talked about, was the convening in October of the JCM, which is the joint commission mechanism that we have between Malaysia and the Philippines. And I'm sorry?
Ministerial.
Yes, at the ministry level.
President Marcos also said that he brought up the case of 56 Filipinos included in the death row in Malaysia. PBBM expects that the issue will have answers in the joint commission meeting between both countries.
So it was my suggestion to Prime Minister Anwar upon the briefing of the DFA that we can take up the repatriation of Filipinos in the next convening of the joint commission.
According to the Department of Foreign Affairs, at least 83 Filipinos overseas are on the death row in different countries because of various offenses, and 56 of them are in Malaysia. Moreover, 30 of them were convicted of murder, 18 of drug trafficking, and 8 fought against the Malaysian king during the 2013 Lahad Datu siege. Meanwhile, President Marcos and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim announced the result of their bilateral meeting. President Marcos thanked the government of Malaysia for their invitation and for the opportunity to strengthen their relationship with the Philippines. The Philippine-Malaysia Joint Commission meeting between President Marcos and Prime Minister Ibrahim also aimed to discuss priority cooperation in various areas of mutual interest. For God and my beloved Philippines, this has been Jean Domingo, SMNI News.
Direct flights between Saudi Arabia and Phuket, Thailand are set to launch this October, marking the first ever direct commercial flights since diplomatic relations were restored. Chatmongkot Pisamay Guson for the rest of the details.
Saudi Phuket direct flights were considered significant since diplomatic relations were finally restored after 3 decades. The director of the Phuket International Airport announced that direct flights between Saudi Arabia and the Thai province are slated to start in October. Direct flight to Phuket will be facilitated by Saudia, the national carrier of Saudi Arabia, followed by the launch of commercial flights between Saudi Arabia and Suvarnabhumi Airport in February of last year. In addition, direct international flights to Phuket are operated from multiple countries, including Russia, South Korea, China, Singapore, Malaysia, Vietnam, and India. The airport director also highlighted that most long-haul flights to and from Phuket will involve layovers in Dubai. To recall, the route of the diplomatic downgrade between Saudi Arabia and Thailand started when Saudi diplomats murdered and the disappearance of a Saudi businessman in Bangkok. รายงานจากราชบุรี นายชัดมงคล วิสมัยโกศล SMS News ประเทศไทย สวัสดีครับ
Filipino powerhouse of talents combined for a one-of-a-kind fashion show on July 23, 2023. The Soul Limbs or Soul M8S, Germination, and DC Mariano Esguerra joined their talents together to produce a very unique and creative fashion catwalk. Liviana Esguerra for more details.
Promoting Filipino culture, Filipino talents, and Filipino heritage has been the trend here in the United Kingdom through organizing events and festivals in the year 2023, the year when Filipino communities showed their support to one another, collaborating talents and uniting for a good cause after the devastating effect of the COVID pandemic in 2019. This particular event, held in St. Boniface Tooting Broadway, is yet another showcase of Filipino talents in unison. Germination provides services through digital media events, and on July 23, 2023, it hosted the showcasing of the colourful Malanguena Pride collection by Daisy Mariano Esguerra, DME, a beauty title holder in 2021 turned fashion designer. The clothing designs showcased that night were bright and colourful with a touch of indigenous tribe heritage. The Soulmates, on the other hand, is a family band from Derby who have had a successful London tour since 2022 and is now on its final leg. At this event, the band played live music while the fashion catwalk was ongoing, which is very different from other catwalks. A young familiar face was also invited to the event and was given a Youth of the Year award. That is none other than Victoria Elsina, a finalist at The Voice UK Kids in 2020. And of course, she offered a song to entertain the guests. To end the eventful night, one of the main organizers thanked everyone who came and supported their event.
First of all, I would like to thank SMNI for covering this event for us. And we are very thankful for all our sponsors who have helped us to make this event possible. And I would like everyone to please, you have to make sure that you get connected to your roots as Filipinos. That's why we are doing this event, so we can spread what Filipino culture and tradition is all about. Again, thank you very much for all those who came to our event today.
For God's and my beloved Philippines, this has been Liviana Esguerra, SMNI News, United Kingdom.
Bangladesh hopes that recent talks for cooperation with the UAE will help solve the ongoing energy crisis in the South Asian country. Jonathan Acobo reports.
Marhaba, the UAE has expressed interest to invest in the renewable energy sector and start potential projects in Bangladesh. The announcement was the result of the recent meeting between the UAE Industry and Advanced Technology Minister Dr. Sultan bin Ahmed Al Jaber and Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina in Dhaka. Petrobangla, the national gas company of Bangladesh, is looking at the possibility of buying liquid hydrocarbons from the UAE to urgently address fuel shortages. Meanwhile, the UAE seeks to invest in Bangladesh renewable energy sector and build energy cooperation. Dr. Ahmed, who serves as the UAE Special Envoy for Climate Change and President-designate for COP28, has also discussed with Sheikh Hasina the potential of these UAE projects to increase power generation in Bangladesh. The UAE will be sending 2 teams to the South Asian country in the next few weeks to discuss renewable energy and explore investment opportunities. Bangladesh is heavily dependent on energy imports and has been facing power cuts due to fuel shortages.
A week before the meeting, the UAE President His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan sent a letter to the President of Bangladesh, inviting him to attend the upcoming UN Climate Change Conference in Dubai this November. Tajublak Al-Mazim Haditi at Karum Dubai Canada Jonathan Kobos My News na Emirates.
And before we end, may you be inspired with the message of the appointed Son of God. And that's all for today's edition of Newsline World. For more news update, you may visit SMNINewsChannel.com or follow us on our official social media accounts on Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter. For God and my beloved country, the Philippines, I'm Trey Gomez. Thank you for watching Newsline World. And thank you to our beloved Pastor Apollo Siki Buloy, for the opportunity to be a part of this program. May you continue to listen on SMNI as it delivers nothing but fair, truthful, and balanced news, because SMNI is your source of credible news.
This is SMNI News Channel. Truth that matters.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on the notification bell to keep you up to date. Also visit our official social media accounts and join our community on Viber and Telegram.